Yo, this is Grant. Welcome to Smoov. Today, we've got a powerful practice to support you in aligning your body and your mind. This simple 15-minute session of restorative ground movement will help you open up your body and leave you feeling relaxed and rejuvenated. Now, enjoy this practice with the grounded, the goofy, making his Smoov debut, the one and only Sterling Weston.
Alrighty. Just wanted to start off by introducing a ground workflow. It's super common to my practice. It really seems to get me in the right state of mind and movement for the day. So I like to start off in a kneeling position here, just kind of hanging out, gathering my bearings. If you're outside, taking in the sun. If you're inside, taking in the safety of your home environment or whatever building that you're kicking it in. So when I'm here, I'm thinking about being very strong and active in the glutes and the entire hip complex and low back. It's all very activated. I'm not pressing too much pressure down into my ankles here. I'm really putting the pressure back and even up a little bit. Just breathing into this and hanging out here just to get settled before we move into our first exercise, the rocker. So with this, I'm getting my heels out a little bit outside of my toes. Putting my hands in the ground lightly, not really pressing them too deep, just lightly supporting myself with my hands. Hey, doggy. What I like to do here is find a really subtle range of motion with it. If the range of motion is causing your hips to come forward like this and your pelvic floor to come in front of you, that's kind of the opposite of what I'm trying to do here. So finding that range of motion to where you can still keep this nice natural curve in your low back. And then just getting some, they're almost pulses. They're such a low range of motion. If you have the range of motion to come back a little further while maintaining that, absolutely feel free to explore into that. And so when I'm going back, I'm pulling the knees apart, which really engages all of my hips. And as I come forward, I just let that pull apart go. And I relax my knees. Pulling apart, letting it go. I have my eyes forward. I'm talking, so my mouth is open, but ideally, your lips are closed, your teeth are closed lightly. The tongue's on the roof of the mouth. The eyes are either forward or just a few inches ahead of the ground in front of you. Not down here. Not dozing off right here. Not cranked up to here. Just feeling elongation of the spine. Strong shoulders. Subtle ranges of motion. Then you could tuck the toes under. Still thinking about those heels outside of the toes. Ripping the floor apart with the knees and feet on the way back. Letting it go on the way forward. You could play around with that with your hands as well. Ripping the ground apart on the way back with the hands. Letting it go on the way forward. I aim for about 10 reps with the feet flat and 10 reps with the toes tucked. Breathing through the nose the whole time. Sweet. And we're going to move on to our Sphinx Reaches. So for these, again, I still have my heels outside of my toes. I have my forearms in the ground, my hands in the ground. I'm not letting my shoulders sink up. I'm not pushing them into the ground insane. I'm kind of finding a subtle in between there. Take the eyes up. At first, just feel into this posture. Really feel the hips in contact with the floor. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about cleaning up the relationship of my eye movement to my head movement, and then how that carries over to the rest of the movement of the body. Eyes to the head, to the spine, to the limbs. I'm going to get creative with this. I'm going to start by taking my eyes to the left, letting my head follow my eyes to the left. Maybe I look over my shoulder. Maybe I look at something to my left and really examine it. Collect some data of your environment. Doing the same thing to my right. Going as far as I can take it while not going overboard with the range of motion. I can start getting creative and reaching for things. Maybe there's a pebble on the ground that's not really there, but we're pretending it's there. Reaching it. Feeling that sway of the body, or you could really kind of stabilize the body while you're reaching for it. Getting explorative here. Again, the intent here is to link the eye movement with the head. Maybe there's a big ball that you're grasping for. Maybe there's a tiny microscopic crumb that's really, really heavy. Breathing with the movement. You can do yeses, taking my eyes up, taking my eyes down. Usually aim for about 20 reps of head movement and eye movement. And really take some breaks in between it to breathe. Awesome. From here we're going to go into the cross crawl bird dog. And so what I'm doing with this, I'm getting in this tabletop position on all sixes, both hands, both feet, both knees. I start to kind of pull the ground apart with the hands and the shoulders. Do the same with the knees and the feet. Feel those forces through the body of ripping the floor apart. It's getting me balanced, it's getting me stable. It's making my balance safe. Breathing. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to try and hover my opposing limbs off the ground with as small space between my limbs and the ground as possible. So it's going to look something like this. I'm really ripping the floor apart with the opposing limbs that are going to stay connected to the ground. That's going to secure that balance for me. So I'm going to lift my left hand and my right leg off the ground in a second here. And so before I do that, I'm going to really start thinking about ripping the floor apart with my right hand and my left leg. And you don't need to hover it that long. Honestly, just a quick and then down is great. But the most important thing in this movement is going to be that you reset between every rep. So like really take your time and create some space in between the reps to do that pull apart. So I'm going to rip the floor apart with my left hand and my right leg right now, and then I'm going to hover my right hand and my left leg. Now I'm going to rip the floor apart with my left hand and my right leg and hover my right hand and my left leg. From the front, ripping. I have the eyes forward right now, or I have them a few inches ahead of me on the ground. Always taking a break to re-rip the floor apart. And I go for about 20 reps of this, 10 on each side. And I'm going to finish up here with a tummy vacuum. So again, in tabletop position on all sixes. Just going to take some regular breaths here. Just becoming aware of my natural breath before I start to manipulate it. Playing with those polo parts we've been exploring. Now I'm going to start by tucking the rib cage down into the pelvis slightly. I feel my core start to activate a little bit more than it's been. I feel the connection between my pelvis and my rib cage and this stacking and alignment. The opposite of that would be having my rib cage come up here. I'm just tucking it into it. I begin by exhaling all the air out that I can as much as possible. Bringing that navel into my spine. My belly button is melting back up into my spine. And then I could do this extra exhale to really tuck everything up into my rib cage there like a vacuum. And I hold that for about 8 seconds. And then I inhale and really just let my belly fall. I might take a few gathering breaths here in between. And on the next full exhale, I'm going to really embrace that vacuum aspect of it, the second part where I'm tucking everything up into my rib cage. And this time I'm going to play around with some pelvic floor contraction. So I might try and cut my pee off. It's like the feeling of cutting your pee off. That's going to contract your pelvic floor. So while I'm in that vacuum, I'm going to go ahead and play around with contracting my pelvic floor. And on the exhale, when I let my belly sink, I'm going to really relax and spread that pelvic floor. So it looks like this. One full inhale and full exhale. When contracting that pelvic floor, it made it a little bit more difficult to hold that exhale vacuum for 8 seconds. So whatever time feels right for you, go ahead and hold it too. Inhaling, letting my belly relax and fall, releasing that feeling of clenching your pee off. Taking another inhale to fully expand, and then going into that vacuum exhale hold. Aiming for about 10 reps of these vacuums. And there you have it. Pretty subtle and dialed in floor ground movement sesh. Thanks.